Okay, quick intro on myself. Basically, you see the two logo below. I don't moonlight in two companies. The right one, Athena Dynamics, is a subsidiary of the group company BH Global, basically in the maritime sector for the last about 50, 57 years, as old as Singapore. And Athena Dynamics is actually spin-off from the IT group IT department into a security consulting outfits, which is now focusing a lot in the government space, protection of CII, and also SCADA, right? So the title I chose this, the word blended here has a lot of meaning in a way that it entails an evolving thought and experimentation of cyber protection practices. We don't believe in carrying the slogan of security by design because that's not practical. We believe in security by practices, right? So that's how a blended strategy slowly evolve and make it a practitioner approach to cybersecurity. So we went to quite a fair bit of OT guys, and very interestingly, about 3 years ago, I was asked to brief the board of a regional energy plant, and that was what how they look like after which they were so shocked that their plant can be hacked so easily. Yeah, and I had the biggest eyes because I was so shocked that the senior management doesn't know that. All right, so then I also have specific encounters in the journey that never put the IT and OT leaderships together in the meeting room. I have two occasions whereby they fought in the same meeting in front of external like me. So I learned a lot through the journey. So maybe just share a bit of, I mean, if within 20 minutes, there are limited things that you can share. So we look at the security, I call it triple P, which is people, process, platform, basically technologies. And then broadly speaking, the way we see cybersecurity is not just IT and OT being very intertwined, but the way we see cybersecurity is very simple: non-detection and detection. And then we introduced a notion of blended protection. All right. So the classic view of cybersecurity, I won't go through all these people, process, technology, but focusing on the platform side. All right. So the way we see it as in total cybersecurity protection, our view to it is that it needs to have a detection paradigm as well as non-detection. Think about it. Most of the cybersecurity tools today, I can say more than 90%, they're all detection based. Whether it's sandboxing, multi-AB, threat intelligence, machine learning, all working on the same principle of trying to use the most advanced technology to detect the bad guy so that it can remove them. This is a good way to help in protection. However, it is not sufficient because in the first place, the bottom line is we cannot detect them. We can detect them today, we cannot detect them tomorrow. So it's forever a running race. So in the detection paradigm, it forms a baseline, but it's insufficient. And for the baseline, it is a very broad perspective of things. I usually would recommend use a best of breed AI-based monitoring tool, best of breed binary SAS tool, which can scan application used in SCADA without the need for the source code. I think that is very essential. That's why just now I mentioned that whenever people say security by design, I scratch my head because looking at the production deployment, looking at even greenfield deployment application, think about the cost and things, the buy-in of people is easy to say than done. All right. So then the non-detection paradigm, we have a lab that whole day is focusing on this. I won't go into detail. These are each of them very big subject, like content disarm reconstruction technologies, non-detection totally, isolation and containment technology, micro-segmentation technologies. The way that we see is that IT and OT is very so intertwined that all these are applicable across both sides as well, although they have differences of the likes of AIC and CIA kind of priority. So what do you mean by non-detection and why it's so important and it's well neglected in the cybersecurity world is, right, what I mentioned earlier, most are based on protection thinking, and we can't even detect the advanced threat in the first place, and that is best manifested in cases, I mean, close door. There are so many cases. I don't like to cite cases like SingHealth, but this is quite close to that thought, is that the perimeter prevention is by detection. So we advocate prevention by non-detection, whereas when they come in, the attacker actually has been having party in the land for over a year and finally get our Prime Minister's medical record. I mean, the outside is detection, inside is detection. That is the fundamental of the gap in our view. All right, so if you look at a typical IT/OT environment, so IT and OT, then we have this typical air gap, so that internet fronting segment cannot access to the inside crown jewels, be it SCADA or maybe classified network that we know. Unfortunately, just like when people talk about security by design, how practical it is, right? In SCADA, all of us know that availability is so important. So they have time-based process control, remote access for maintenance. OEM can come in, okay, and you look at the lights in the past of Stuxnet and cases that happen, right? They throw a USB thumb drive in a car park and the engineer take it into the SCADA and that's it, although it's air gap as well. And then, of course, the people side is the hardest one, because that I don't know how to handle that. That maybe is a HR issue, or I don't know how education and the ethics portion of people will come in. Nothing to do with the technical. Okay, so having this consideration, and in our view, the matters get more complicated, is that the IT side starts to get very sexy with all kind of analytic tools, all kind of UI things, and then people start to do the connection. That's where all hell let loose. But of course, then people start to do like data diode, one-way communication and things. Regardless, the diodes assure 100% unidirectional at hardware level, but it doesn't protect you from malware entry. If the malware entry is still being taken care of by detection tool, and one of the days something will come in anyway. So then all these entry points, you need a strong gate. And we advocate that all these strong gates be protected by detectionless tools rather than the common detection-based protection. That's where the blended thinking comes in. So what do I mean by blended-based monitoring? Just now I talked about the non-detection side. So now let's talk about the detection side and just look at the OT detection side, because we have limited time. We can't cover all the quadrant. Okay, in OT we advocate a complete protection strategy by looking at detection of network anomalies, this portion, as well as functional detection at the historian level. So I wouldn't use buzzword like AI or machine learning, but it's more analytics and kind of learning of the context. So, and of course, SCADA, we know the way they work is at the moment you want to install something, all the SCADA people will ask you to leave the room. So they want a fully passive, non-intrusive setup where all this detection processing can be done in the IT segment, whereby we can channel the data from the OT segment through data diode to the OT side, and we have done projects like that, many of which. All right, so it's a combination of network and functional analytics, because there are a lot of propositions. They are only looking at the network side, but they forgot the functional side, where functional side can be easily fulfilled by looking at historian and analytics of the historian. Anyway, if the OT side is formally set up, and of course not all will have the OPC layer, but if we have that and then coupled with the historian collected, anyway, devices, OEM devices are tagged, and we can always analyze the correlation and also anomalies. Yeah. So the traditional approach of detection is detect, compare, certain signature and such. But in this case, under the detection paradigm, the blended approach then is detect anomalies, see the red fish swimming not quite right against the tide, and bring out all these things before serious things happen. Yeah. So some example, this we have been doing with some plants. If you want case study, you can email to me. I can share with you the published case study. So in this case, it is a historian-based analytics, whereby in this case, it's straightforwardly considering that the pattern of activities doesn't match up to the expected the power attainment of the SCADA device. Yeah. So this is quite straightforward. The other case is, interestingly, they analyze the historian. They are able to correlate OEM of different devices in a SCADA environment and alert things that is not normal. We feel that this is very interesting, and in fact, the customers like this thinking is because the way we approach not only just sieve out cyber threats, but it sieve out operational issue. For example, this valve doesn't work quite properly with that pipe. It may alert, and the valve may be going to break down in 3 months' time, and they can replace it early. So it's not just a cybersecurity view, and also the analytics of plant-wide view is so important that a lot of SCADA OEM manufacturer, they have their analytics, but it's only for their OEM. The SCADA operator needs an overview of the plant, and by doing this very device agnostic way, it is able to actually do this correlation and bring out the anomalies very productively and effectively. All right. So the correlation here, yeah, that's what I meant. So the strength of branded analytics, the way I see is that it's both at network and functional layer. There are a lot of network tools that maybe do network spanning, even in the SCADA segment, but it's looking at the network only. And then functional side, we need to complement it because either side cannot see the other side. So we detect the unknown by using detectionless thinking and also fully passive proposition, plant-wide correlations as mentioned, and also to completely cover most of the threats in the possible SCADA environment. All right, so in a nutshell, these 3 areas of the blended thinking. There are more we are still researching in our lab, where we will continue to value add to the concern, to solve the concern of most SCADA player. All right, so it will be forming the baseline model for this player, which we think is very necessary. Yeah, that is my last slide, and I hope you find it useful.